Nia stepped off the bus on her first day of school, clutching her worn-out backpack tightly. Her heart was racing as she looked around at the unfamiliar faces staring back at her. The air felt different here, quieter, heavier. She had just moved from Chicago to a small town in Ohio with her mom, who got a new job as a nurse. Nia missed the buzz of city life and wasn't sure how she'd fit into this sleepy little place. As she walked toward the entrance of the school, she could feel eyes following her every move. Whispers rippled through the crowd like waves. "Look at her hair," one girl muttered loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Is that even real?" Another chimed in, giggling. Nia tried to ignore them, keeping her head high and focusing, straight ahead. But deep down, their words stung more than she wanted to admit. Her first class didn't go much better. When the teacher introduced her as the new student, all heads turned toward her again. Some kids smirked, others whispered behind cupped hands. One boy leaned over to his friend and said something about how different she looked compared to everyone else. Nia forced herself to smile politely, pretending she didn't care what they thought. Inside, though, she felt like shrinking into invisibility. By lunchtime, it became clear that fitting in wouldn't be easy. As Nia stood in line for food, holding her tray awkwardly, a group of girls blocked her path. They were clearly the popular ones, the kind who ruled the hallways and set the trends. Their leader, a tall girl with perfectly styled blonde hair, stepped forward. She crossed her arms and gave Nia a once-over before sneering. "What's with the whatever that is on your head?" Nia froze, unsure of what to say. Her afro was natural, something she took pride in, but now it felt like a target painted on her forehead. Before she could respond, the other girls joined in. "Yeah, does it come with instructions?" One teased, while another added, "Maybe you should try blending in for once." Laughter erupted around them, echoing painfully in Nia's ears. She clenched her fists under the table, fighting back tears. These weren't just harmless jokes, they were pointed jabs meant to make her feel small. And it worked. For a moment, Nia considered walking away, finding somewhere quiet to sit alone. But then she remembered her mom's advice. Don't let anyone dim your light. So instead, she squared her shoulders, picked up her tray, and found an empty corner of the cafeteria where she could eat in peace. That night, lying in bed, Nia replayed the day's events in her mind. She hated feeling powerless, hated letting those bullies win by making her doubt herself. But she also knew standing up to them wouldn't be easy, not when they had numbers on their side. Still, something inside her refused to give up. Maybe tomorrow would be better, she told herself. Or maybe she'd find a way to show them exactly who she was. The bullying didn't stop after that first day. It only got worse. Every time Nia walked down the hallway, she felt like a magnet for mean comments. The group of popular girls made it their mission to remind her she didn't belong. They'd trip her when she passed by, laugh at her clothes, and mimic her accent whenever she spoke up in class. Teachers either didn't notice or chose to look the other way. It was as if no one cared what happened to her. Nia tried to keep her head down and focus on getting through each day. She told herself it didn't matter what they said or did. She wasn't going to let them break her. But inside, she was crumbling. Nights became harder. She'd lie awake replaying their cruel words over and over again, wondering why they hated her so much. Was it because of how she looked, how she talked, or was it just because she was new? One afternoon after gym class, things reached a boiling point. Nia was changing back into her regular clothes when she heard footsteps behind her. Before she could turn around, someone shoved her hard against the lockers. Metal dug into her shoulder blades, and pain shot through her body. She spun around to see the leader of the group standing there smirking. "Maybe if you did something about that wild hair of yours," the girl sneered, leaning closer, "people might actually like you." Nia's chest tightened. Her hands trembled as she clenched them into fists. She wanted to scream, to cry, to run away. But none of those options felt right. Something inside her snapped. All the frustration, all the hurt, all the anger she'd been holding in for weeks bubbled to the surface. Without thinking, she swung her fist and connected squarely with the girl's jaw. Time seemed to freeze. Gasps filled the locker room as the girl stumbled backward, clutching her face. For a moment, no one moved. Then chaos erupted. Other students rushed forward, some yelling, others laughing nervously. Someone shouted, "Did you see that?" While another muttered, "She just punched her." Nia stood there, breathing heavily, her knuckles throbbing. She couldn't believe what she'd just done. Part of her felt guilty. Violence wasn't who she was, but another part of her felt free. For once, she hadn't backed down. She hadn't let them push her around. And even though she knew there would be consequences, she didn't regret. Word spread fast. By the end of the day, everyone in school was talking about what happened. Some kids thought it was hilarious. They'd never seen anyone stand up to the queen bee before. Others whispered that Nia was dangerous, warning each other to stay away from her. A few secretly admired her courage, wishing they had the guts to do the same. When Nia was called to the principal's office, she braced herself for the worst. She sat stiffly in the chair, staring at the angry faces of teachers and parents demanding answers. Everyone expected her to apologize, to admit she'd made a mistake, but instead Nia found her voice. "I didn't punch her for fun," she said, her tone steady despite the nerves bubbling inside her. "I did it because I've been bullied every single day since I got here. No one did anything about it, not the teachers, not the other students. So yeah, maybe hitting her wasn't the best choice, but I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter." Silence fell over the room. For a moment, no one said anything. Then, to everyone's surprise, a few classmates stepped forward. One boy admitted he'd seen the leader bully others too. Another girl confessed she'd been too scared to speak up until now. Slowly, the tide began to turn. People started realizing that Nia wasn't the villain in this story. She was just someone who'd had enough. In the end, Nia avoided suspension, but was given detention and a stern warning. The leader of the group went home with a bruised ego and a sore jaw. News of the incident traveled quickly, and soon Nia became the center of attention. Not everyone liked her newfound reputation, but one thing was certain. People finally noticed her. Whether they admired her bravery or feared her boldness, no one could ignore her anymore. As Nia left the principal's office that day, she realized something important. Standing up for herself hadn't solved everything. It hadn't magically erased the bullying or made her life perfect overnight. But it had changed something. It had shown her that she had power, strength she hadn't known she possessed. And for the first time since moving to this town, she felt like she might actually survive. The days following the incident in the locker room were a whirlwind for Nia. She walked through the halls feeling like she had a spotlight on her, except this time, it wasn't just whispers about her hair or clothes. It was something bigger. People couldn't stop talking about what happened. Some students high-fived her when teachers weren't looking, while others avoided eye contact altogether, as if they weren't sure whether to cheer her on or fear her. Detention wasn't fun, but it gave Nia time to think. Sitting alone in the quiet classroom after school, she replayed everything in her mind. The taunts, the shove against the lockers, that split second when she decided to throw the punch. Part of her still felt guilty. Hitting someone wasn't who she was, and deep down she knew violence wasn't the answer. But another part of her felt alive. For weeks, she'd been holding everything inside, letting the bullies chip away at her confidence. That punch had been her way of saying, enough. What surprised her most, though, was the reaction from other students. After the initial shock wore off, people started opening up to her. One boy, who usually kept to himself, told her he'd seen the leader of the group pick on his younger brother last year, and never said anything because he was too scared. A girl in her math class confessed she'd been teased too, not for her hair but for wearing hand-me-down clothes. Slowly, Nia realized she wasn't the only one who'd been suffering in silence. One day during lunch, a shy kid with glasses approached her table. He carried a sketch pad under his arm and looked nervous, like he wasn't sure if he should even be there. "Hey," he said quietly. "I just wanted to say, what you did? It was pretty brave." Nia blinked, caught off guard. No one had ever called her brave before. "Thanks," she replied, unsure of what else to say. The boy hesitated for a moment, then added, Some of us were wondering if you'd want to sit with us sometime, since you're kinda different, in a good way." That invitation changed everything. Over the next few days, Nia found herself spending more time with this small group of kids who called themselves the Misfits. There was the artist with the sketchpad, a bookworm who always had her nose buried in a novel, and a guy who loved fixing old bicycles and could talk endlessly about gears and chains. None of them fit neatly into the school's social hierarchy, but together, they created their own little world, a safe space where they didn't have to pretend to be anyone but themselves. For the first time since moving to town, Nia felt like she belonged somewhere. These kids weren't perfect. They argued sometimes, stumbled over awkward conversations, and definitely didn't have all the answers. But they accepted her for who she was. They didn't care about her accent or her hair. They cared about her. And in return, she began to see them for who they truly were: kind, funny, and full of hidden talents. With their support, Nia started coming out of her shell. She discovered things about herself she hadn't known before, like how much she enjoyed writing poetry. Pouring her thoughts onto paper helped her process everything she'd been through, or how organizing events came naturally to her, like when she suggested hosting a movie night in the library and somehow managed to get half the school to show up. Each new discovery made her feel stronger, more capable. But even as Nia grew closer to her new friends, tension lingered between her and the leader of the Bullies. The girl hadn't spoken to her directly since the punch, but Nia could feel her watching from afar. Sometimes their eyes would meet across the cafeteria or in the hallway, and Nia would brace herself, wondering if the feud was far from over. Would the girl try to retaliate? Or worse, rally her followers to make life even harder for Nia? Despite the uncertainty, Nia refused to live in fear. Every time doubt crept in, she reminded herself of the lessons she'd learned. Standing up for herself wasn't easy, but it was worth it. She didn't need everyone to like her. In fact, she realized that trying to please everyone was exhausting. What mattered most was staying true to herself and surrounding herself with people who genuinely cared. As the weeks went by, Nia noticed subtle changes in the school's atmosphere. Kids who used to laugh along with the bullies now seemed hesitant to join in. Rumors about the leader's cruelty spread faster than ever, and some students even started calling her out when she crossed the line. It wasn't a dramatic shift. There was still plenty of gossip and cliques, but cracks were forming in the walls of intimidation she'd built around herself. Through it all, Nia kept moving forward. She focused on her studies, spent time with her new friends, and poured her energy into creative projects. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt ready to face it. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she wouldn't have to face them alone. As the weeks rolled on, Nia began to notice a shift in the school's dynamics. The punch she'd thrown had sent ripples through the student body, and while some kids still whispered behind her back, others started treating her differently. Teachers who once ignored her now nodded at her in the hallways, almost like they were silently acknowledging her resilience. Even the shy artist with the sketchpad mentioned that one of their teachers had brought up standing up for yourself during class discussion, a topic that felt oddly personal. But Nia knew the storm wasn't over yet. The leader of the bullies hadn't backed down completely. If anything, she seemed to be regrouping, plotting her next move. Nia could feel it in the air, those lingering stares, the hushed conversations when she walked by. Something was brewing, and she braced herself for whatever might come next. One afternoon, Nia got her first clue about what the bully was planning. She overheard two girls talking near the water fountain. They weren't trying to hide their excitement, as they whispered about the upcoming talent show. Apparently, the leader had convinced the drama club to sabotage Nia's act. She'd signed up to perform an original spoken word piece, something deeply personal about identity and finding strength in adversity. Word had spread quickly around school, and people were curious to see what she'd do on stage. But instead of letting her shine, the bully intended to embarrass her in front of everyone. Nia felt her stomach drop. She'd worked so hard on her performance, pouring hours into writing and rehearsing. It wasn't just some random act, it was her way of reclaiming her voice, of showing the world who she really was. And now this girl wanted to ruin it all. When she told her friends about the sabotage plan, they were furious. "That's messed up," the bookworm exclaimed, slamming her notebook shut. "She can't just mess with your moment like that." The artist with the sketch pad nodded, adding, "You've got to fight back, don't let her win." But Nia hesitated. Fighting back didn't always mean throwing another punch or causing more drama. She thought about everything she'd been through since moving to town. The bullying, the isolation, the long nights spent wondering if she'd ever fit in. That punch in the locker room had been a turning point, but it hadn't solved everything. Retaliating now would only give the bully exactly what she wanted, a reason to keep picking fights. Instead, Nia decided to take a different approach. With encouragement from her friends, she focused on making her performance even stronger. She practiced late into the night, fine-tuning every word until it felt perfect. When nerves threatened to creep in, she reminded herself why she was doing this, not for revenge, not to prove anyone wrong, but because she owed it to herself to share her story. On the day of the talent show, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Students filled the seats, chatting excitedly about who would perform and what surprises awaited them. Backstage, Nia paced nervously, her heart pounding in her chest. Her friends stayed close, offering words of encouragement. "You've got this," the bike enthusiast said firmly. "Just breathe and let the words flow." As she waited for her turn, Nia couldn't help but glance toward the audience. Sure enough, the leader of the bullies sat front and center, smirking confidently. For a second, doubt flickered in Nia's mind. What if something went wrong? What if the sabotage plan succeeded? Then she remembered something her mom used to say. Sometimes the best way to fight darkness is to shine brighter. Taking a deep breath, Nia stepped onto the stage. The spotlight hit her, warm and blinding. For a moment, everything else faded away. The whispers, the judgments, the fear. All that remained was her and the microphone in her hand. As she began speaking, her voice steady and clear, the room fell silent. She spoke about growing up in a big city and moving to a place where she felt invisible. She talked about being teased for things she couldn't change and how those experiences had shaped her. But most importantly, she shared how she found strength in standing up for herself and discovered a community that accepted her for who she was. By the time she finished, tears glistened in her eyes. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of triumph. The auditorium erupted into applause, students rising to their feet in a standing ovation. Nia scanned the crowd, her gaze landing on the bully sitting stiffly in her seat. Instead of looking victorious, the girl looked defeated. Backstage, her friends rushed to congratulate her, hugging her tightly. "You crushed it," the bookworm cheered, grinning ear to ear. Nia smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. Whatever happened next, she knew she'd done the aftermath of the talent show was like a tidal wave crashing through the school. Videos of Nia's performance started circulating online almost immediately. Kids recorded clips on their phones, and within hours, snippets of her spoken word piece were being shared across social media platforms. The comments ranged from "Wow, she's amazing" to "This made me cry," and even some who admitted, "I used to laugh at her, but now I feel bad." For Nia, it was surreal. She hadn't expected her words to resonate so deeply with others. Sure, she'd hoped her performance would connect with a few people, her friends, maybe a teacher or two, but this level of attention was overwhelming. Strangers approached her in the hallway just to tell her how much they admired her courage. Some kids who had never spoken to her before suddenly wanted to sit with her at lunch. Even teachers began nodding approvingly whenever they passed her in the hallways. But not everyone was thrilled about Nia's newfound fame. The leader of the bullies, whose plan to sabotage the act had completely backfired, looked angrier than ever. Instead of embarrassing Nia, the bully had unintentionally given her a platform to shine. Now, instead of being the center of attention herself, she found herself pushed to the sidelines as students flocked around Nia. It was clear that her reign as Queen Bee was wobbling, and she wasn't taking it well. One afternoon, after gym class, Nia noticed the girl lingering near her locker. At first, she tensed up, wondering if this was another attempt to provoke her. But when the girl finally spoke, her tone was different. Not mocking or aggressive, but hesitant, almost apologetic. "Hey," the girl said softly, avoiding eye contact. "Look, I wanted to say sorry about everything." Nia blinked, caught off guard. Was this real? Or just another trick? She crossed her arms and studied the girl carefully. "Sorry for what?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. The girl shifted uncomfortably, still refusing to meet Nia's gaze. "You? No, all the stuff I said, all the mean things, and trying to ruin your talent show thing, that wasn't cool." Nia felt a mix of emotions bubbling inside her. Anger, skepticism, and maybe even a tiny bit of hope. Part of her wanted to lash out, to remind the girl of every cruel comment, every shove against the lockers. But another part of her recognized something important. The girl was trying. Whether it was genuine or forced didn't matter right now. What mattered was that she was making an effort. "You're right," Nia said finally. "It wasn't cool. None of it was. But saying sorry doesn't fix everything. Words are easy, it's actions that count." The girl nodded slowly, looking genuinely ashamed. "I get that. And I'm not asking you to forgive me or anything. I don't want to be that person anymore. Everyone's been talking about me behind my back since the talent show, and honestly, I hate it. I don't want to be known as the bully." Nia studied her for a long moment, searching for any sign of dishonesty. When she didn't find one, she sighed. "Okay," she said quietly. "If you really mean it, then prove it. Start by treating people better, not just me, but everyone. Be kind instead of cruel. Build people up instead of tearing them down." The girl swallowed hard, nodding again. "I will. I promise." Over the next few weeks, Nia kept a close eye on the girl. At first, it seemed like nothing had changed. The girl still hung out with her usual crowd, and Nia half expected her to slip back into old habits. But gradually, small changes became noticeable. She stopped laughing at cruel jokes aimed at other students. In group projects, she actually contributed instead of bossing everyone around. One day, Nia even saw her helping a freshman pick up books she'd dropped in the hallway. Still, Nia remained cautious. Trust wasn't something she gave easily, especially after everything she'd been through. But she couldn't deny that the girl was making an effort, and that effort seemed to be paying off. Other students noticed too. Conversations about the bully shifted from disdain to curiosity. Could someone really change? Was she becoming nicer? As for Nia, she continued, thriving. Her confidence soared as she embraced opportunities to step outside her comfort zone. She joined the debate team, where her ability to speak passionately won over both judges and opponents alike. During Black History Month, she organized a school-wide event celebrating diverse cultures, complete with poetry readings, music performances, and art displays. Teachers praised her leadership skills while classmates marveled at her creativity. Through it all, Nia stayed grounded, thanks in large part to her tight-knit group of friends. They reminded her to stay humble, to focus on progress rather than perfection. Together, they navigated the ups and downs of high school life, supporting each other through thick and thin. Even though tensions between Nia and the former bully weren't completely gone, there was a fragile truce forming. The girl occasionally joined Nia's friend group during lunch, sitting quietly at the edge of the table as if testing the waters. Sometimes awkward silences filled the air, but other times laughter broke through, easing the tension little by little. By the end of the semester, Nia realized something profound. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant giving someone a chance to grow, and recognizing that growth took time. She didn't have to fully trust the girl overnight, but she could acknowledge the steps she was taking to become a better version of herself. And as Nia looked around at the people surrounding her, the friends who stood by her side, the teachers, who believed in her potential, and even the girl working to undo her past mistakes, she felt a sense of peace. Life wasn't perfect, and neither was anyone in it. But sometimes, imperfection was exactly what made things beautiful. As the school year rolled on, Nia noticed something remarkable happening, not just in herself, but in the people around her. The ripple effect of her actions was spreading wider than she'd ever imagined. Her talent show performance had sparked conversations about bullying, self-acceptance, and standing up for who you are. Teachers started incorporating discussions about kindness and empathy into their lessons. Even the principal held an assembly where he talked about creating a culture of respect and understanding. Naya's influence wasn't limited to big gestures either. It showed up in small, everyday moments too. Kids who used to tease others for being different now seemed more mindful of their words. In the cafeteria, tables that were once divided by cliques began to blur as students from different groups mingled more freely. Some even invited kids they wouldn't have given a second glance before. It wasn't perfect. There were still whispers, awkward silences, and occasional snide remarks. But progress was undeniable. The girl who had once bullied Nia continued to make strides, though not without stumbles along the way. One day, during a group project in history class, she snapped at another student for making a mistake. The room fell silent, and everyone turned to look at her, waiting to see how she'd react. For a split second, Nia thought the old version of the girl might reappear, the sharp tongue, the cutting remark, but then something surprising happened. "I'm sorry," the girl said quietly, lowering her voice. "That was rude. Let's just start over, okay?" The apology caught everyone off guard, including Nia. After class, she pulled the girl aside. "You didn't have to say sorry back there," she said, "but I'm glad you did." The girl shrugged, looking embarrassed but determined. "I promised I'd try, right? It's harder than I thought, though. Old habits die hard." Nia smiled faintly. "Yeah, they do, but you're doing better than you think." Encouraged by these changes, Nia decided to take things a step further. She approached the principal with an idea, a school-wide initiative called Diversity Week. The goal was simple: to celebrate differences instead of mocking them. Students would organize activities like cultural food tastings, art exhibits showcasing various traditions, and open mic nights where anyone could share stories about their background or experiences. At first, the principal hesitated. "It's a great idea," he admitted. "But will students actually participate? These kinds of things can be tricky." "They will," Nia insisted. "People want to feel seen and heard. This is our chance to give them that." With his approval, Nia threw herself into planning. Her friends jumped on board, helping brainstorm ideas and spread the word. Posters went up around school, announcing events and encouraging participation. Slowly but surely, excitement began to build. By the time Diversity Week arrived, nearly everyone was buzzing with anticipation. The highlight of the week came on Friday evening, when the auditorium filled up for a special showcase. Students performed dances from different cultures, played traditional instruments, and shared poems written in multiple languages. When it was Nia's turn to speak, she took the stage with confidence, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "This week has been about celebrating who we are," she began, scanning the crowd. "But it's also been about learning to see each other, not as labels or stereotypes, but as people. We all have struggles, dreams, and stories worth sharing. And when we listen to each other, amazing things happen." Her words earned thunderous applause, but what touched her most was seeing the girl who had once bullied her sitting in the front row, clapping along with everyone else. Later, as students filed out of the auditorium, the girl approached Nia again. "That was incredible," she said sincerely. "You're really changing this place, you know that?" As graduation day approached, Nia found herself reflecting on everything she'd been through since stepping off that bus on her first day of school. It felt like a lifetime ago, like she was looking back at a completely different person. Back then she had been so unsure of herself, carrying the weight of loneliness and fear everywhere she went. Now standing in front of the mirror in her cap and gown, she barely recognized the confident young woman staring back at her. The months leading up to graduation were filled with milestones. Nia had become a key figure in the school community, someone people looked up to, not because she demanded attention, but because she inspired it. She organized more events, mentored younger students struggling to find their place, and even started a writing club for kids who wanted to express themselves through poetry and stories. Her spoken word piece from the talent show became legendary among underclassmen, passed down like folklore as proof that one voice could spark real change. But it wasn't just about what she did. It was about how she made others feel. Students, who had once teased her, now sought her advice when they faced challenges of their own. Teachers praised her leadership skills, often telling her she had a bright future ahead. Even the girl who had once bullied her admitted that Nia's courage had pushed her to confront her own flaws and strive to be better. On graduation day, the auditorium buzzed with excitement. Parents snapped photos, siblings fidgeted in their seats, and graduates exchanged nervous glances, wondering if they'd trip while walking across the stage. When Nia's name was called, the crowd erupted into cheers, not just polite applause, but full-throated, heartfelt celebration. As she accepted her diploma, she scanned the audience, spotting her mom wiping away tears in the front row. For a moment, everything else faded. The noise, the lights, the pressure, and all that remained was gratitude. Later that evening, during the senior dinner, Nia delivered a speech that left everyone breathless. Standing behind the podium, she began by thanking her teachers, friends, and family for supporting her journey. Then she turned to her classmates. "We've all been through something these past few years," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion swelling inside her. "Some of us have faced challenges we never imagined we'd overcome. Some of us have made mistakes we thought we'd never recover from. But here we are today, stronger, wiser, and ready to take on whatever comes next." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "I used to think fitting in meant changing myself to match everyone else, but I was wrong. Fitting in isn't about blending into the background. It's about having the courage to stand out. It's about embracing who you are, even when the world tries to tell you you're not enough. And it's about lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down." Her classmates listened intently, nodding along as she spoke. When she finished, the room exploded into applause. People hugged her afterward, thanking her for putting into words what so many of them had been feeling but couldn't articulate. One student even told her, "You reminded me why I stuck it out, even when things got hard." After the ceremony, Nia stood outside with her friends, watching fireworks light up the night sky. They laughed, shared memories, and promised to stay in touch no matter where life took them. The girl who had once bullied her approached hesitantly, holding a small gift wrapped in colorful paper. "I know it's cheesy," the girl said, handing it over, "but I wanted to give you something, to say thanks." Nia unwrapped the gift, carefully revealing a journal with the words "Your Story Matters" embossed on the cover. Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged the girl tightly. "This means so much," she whispered. "Thank you." Years later, Nia returned to her old high school as a guest speaker. She had grown into a published author and activist, using her platform to advocate for anti-bullying initiatives and empowerment programs. Walking through the familiar hallways brought back memories, the good, the bad, and the transformative. When she stepped onto the stage in the same auditorium where she'd performed her spoken word piece years earlier, the students greeted her with thunderous applause. This time, though, she wasn't nervous. She smiled warmly, scanning the sea of young faces eager to hear her story. "Change starts with one person," she told them, her voice resonating throughout the room. "One act of kindness, one brave decision to stand up for yourself or someone else. You might not see the impact right away, but trust me, it ripples farther than you think." As she spoke, she noticed a group of misfit kids sitting together near the back, whispering and laughing quietly. They reminded her of herself and her friends all those years ago. She pointed them out playfully, saying, "And to my fellow misfits out there, you belong here. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise." By the end of her talk, several students lined up to ask questions or share their own stories. One shy freshman lingered until everyone else had left, clutching a notebook nervously. "I want to write poems like you," the student confessed, "but I'm scared people will laugh at me." Nia knelt down to meet the student's gaze. "They might," she admitted gently, "but some people will listen, and those are the ones who matter. Start small, keep going, and don't stop believing in your voice. Trust me, it's worth it." As she walked out of the school that evening, Nia felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come full circle, from the new girl desperate to fit in to someone who inspired others to embrace their uniqueness. Life hadn't been easy, but every struggle had shaped her into the person she was meant to become. And as she drove away, she knew her journey was far from over, because the best stories never truly end. Years passed, and Nia's life took on a rhythm she never could have imagined back in high school. The shy girl who once clutched her backpack tightly, afraid of what others might say, had grown into a force of nature. Her journey wasn't perfect. There were still moments of doubt, days when the weight of expectations felt heavy, but she had learned to navigate them with grace and resilience. After graduating, Nia moved to a big city to attend college. It was overwhelming at first, the noise, the crowds, the endless hustle, but she quickly found her footing. She joined clubs, volunteered at community centers, and even started a blog where she shared her thoughts on identity, courage, and finding your place in the world. What began as a personal outlet soon gained traction, drawing readers from all walks of life who resonated with her words. People wrote to her, sharing their own struggles and thanking her for reminding them they weren't alone. Her writing eventually caught the attention of a publisher, leading to her first book, a collection of essays and poems inspired by her experiences growing up. The title, Standing Tall, became a mantra not just for her, but for anyone who read it. Bookstores invited her to speak at events, schools asked her to return as a guest speaker, and organizations sought her advice on building programs to support young people facing adversity. Nia realized that her story had become more than just hers. It was a beacon of hope for others. One evening, after speaking at a youth empowerment conference, a teenage boy approached her. He looked nervous, clutching a worn copy of her book in his hands. "I don't know if I can do what you did," he admitted softly. "People still make fun of me every day." Nia knelt down to meet his gaze, recognizing the pain in his eyes. "You're already doing it," she told him gently. "Just by showing up today, by holding on to this book, you're standing tall. You don't have to fight everyone or change everything overnight. Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing you can do." The boy nodded slowly, a flicker of determination crossing his face. "Thanks," he murmured before walking away. Watching him go, Nia felt a surge of pride, not because she'd solved his problems, but because she'd reminded him that he wasn't fighting alone. Back home, Nia continued pouring her energy into advocacy work. She partnered with schools to create anti-bullying campaigns, emphasizing the importance of kindness and empathy. She mentored teens through workshops, helping them find their voices and channel their struggles into art, music, or activism. Each time she saw a spark of confidence ignite in someone else, she remembered how far she herself had come. But Nia didn't forget her roots. Every chance she got, she returned to her hometown, visiting her old high school to check in on the students and teachers who had shaped her journey. On one such visit, she noticed a mural painted on the side of the gymnasium, a vibrant collage of faces representing diversity, unity, and strength. At the center was a quote attributed to her. "Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about moving forward despite your fears." Tears pricked her eyes as she stood there tracing the colorful images with her gaze. A group of students nearby recognized her and rushed over, eager to introduce themselves. One girl proudly showed her a poem she'd written for a class assignment. Another boy talked animatedly about how he'd started a club to help new students adjust to school life. Their enthusiasm was contagious, filling Nia with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Later that afternoon, as she sat in the cafeteria eating lunch with some former teachers, she reflected on how much the school had changed since her days there. Gone were the rigid cliques and toxic hierarchies. In their place was a culture of acceptance and collaboration, one she had unknowingly helped build.